Okay, good night. Good night, everybody. Good night. Good night. Good night. Welcome to the Fatherhood Think Tank. 30 minutes, 30, 60, 90 minutes of father conversation about fathers, for fathers, with fathers. We're continuing our part two of our conversation from last week. That conversation it was about the pros and cons of consensual fatherhood, and we're going to wrap that conversation up tonight. I'm waiting for getting my fathers all in the queue to bring them on stage. Um, but before I do that, I just want to speak a little bit about our sponsorships here at the sponsorship here at the Fatherhood Think Tank, um, and give them their shout out for that work that they do supporting us here at the Fatherhood Think Tank. Um, to another episode, um, and if you are starting to watch, you can definitely go ahead and log on in and get into the room, have some of the conversation with us tonight about this important topic that affects fathers. Uh, so let me just go straight to the talk a little bit about the sponsors that we have. No, let me bring see the guys in here. Let me go and bring them on in here, onto the stage. And there's a crew. Before I introduce them, I want to speak a little bit about our sponsors and some things that's going on this week. Starting with our key sponsor, that is JAG Attorney at Law, Miami-Dade, Broward, West Palm Beach. If you're looking for an attorney in the South Florida area, I can't think of a better lawyer, attorney than JAG Attorney at Law. Johnny A. Gaspar Esquire. You can be reached at j.gaspar@jag1law.com. Phone number 305-827-8087. I almost know this number better than my own personal number. So get the ritual of saying this number. And if you wonder what kind of law he practices, you can go to his website, www.jag1law.com. Johnny comes on all the time. He'll probably be on here again tonight, probably doing something, working on somebody's case and working on some legal stuff. Are some of the other important things that he do. One day we got to get him to talk a little bit about that. But again, JAG Attorney Law, one of our key sponsors of the Fatherhood Think Tank. Another key sponsor is through our partnership through Omega Psi Phi Fort Lauderdale chapter of Fort Lauderdale, the Zeta Chi chapter. They are another key sponsors of the Fatherhood Think Tank. So I just definitely want to recognize them for their support, and also just bring up that tomorrow, if people are interested, we have an event along with them. I missed this last week. Brother, you on my mind? Talking about Black men, because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Are you aware that you are stressed? Same time tomorrow, about 7 o'clock. There's definitely a Zoom link that they have here. If you're interested, if you can't see this, it's not big enough for you to get the Zoom. I'll put it in the chat throughout the night for the end of the. But you should be able to see. You can see it pretty well if you're looking close. But I will be facilitating that conversation tomorrow night. So open to fathers and men who are not fathers, men in general. And they also have another event in the Fort Lauderdale area that they're putting together. That is also another virtual event that anybody can join on Saturday, June 14th. Brother, you're on my mind as a black man. What happens when you stop telling our story? So, a couple of events that they're having. Want to send a shout out to them, and definitely, if you have time, if you're looking just to maybe get something off your chest, have some conversation with men and other fathers. Wasn't able to make it on tonight. There's some other those events that are happening there. All right. Next, we have our other sponsor, Zeta Xi Nu. Zeta Xi Nu chapter of Omega Psi Phi. That's Lagos, Nigeria. The Lagos brothers, again, partnership through their Fatherhood Initiative program that they support our program, and we try to advocate and support things and working with them. So definitely we want to thank the Zeta Xi Nu brothers, Lagos, Nigeria. Next we have the brothers in Philadelphia, the Philly Qs, Omega Lambda, another fatherhood partnership that we have. Fatherhood Initiative, mentor partnership we have with Omega Psi Phi fraternities, Omega Lambda chapter in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So you can see Fatherhood Think Tank has three kind of hubs that they're focusing and have people focusing and pushing out of. That is in for the South Florida area, all of South Florida. International spot, Lagos, Nigeria, and up in the Northeast. So that concludes Philadelphia, Delaware, some of South Jersey area to really facilitate things for the Fatherhood Think Tank. So definitely we appreciate the support and the partnership with these partners. And so let's get to the fathers we have in the room tonight. Let's get a conversation, let them introduce ourselves and get into our conversation. Good night, gentlemen. I see we got Brother Tenny here. We got Brother Lightborn and Brother Ross. Welcome, fathers. Just go ahead and introduce yourself before we get into this conversation.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Ed Tenney. I am a father of 3 nice and grown young adults with 2 grandbabies, 2 grandbaby girls, and 1 grandbaby on the way, and excited to be a part of the continuation of this conversation. Looking forward to it.
And do you know what the other grandbaby is? Did they have a pop the balloon thing?
Oh yeah. The gender reveal. It's a grand boy.
Oh, I know. I was wondering. You said you had 2 girls. See, that's my therapist ear. The therapy ear. Like you say, you have to give us a breakdown that you have 2 granddaughters, and you just say you have another one. So that's interesting.
So he's gonna get some unusual attention.
Yeah,
because we already got the 2 girls.
Right, exactly. I was just thinking that again. I folks, I don't want you to. That ear comes. You hear people say things, and the first thing I say, well, he gave us a clear that he had 2 granddaughters, but is it a mystery about the other child? Or maybe not, because maybe that other child's going to be a boy. We know how people feel about the boys and the girls. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lightborn. I just wanted to point that out. Again, congratulations, Ed.
Oh, absolutely. Congratulations. I mean, he got two bosses, and there you go. Because make no mistake about it, he got two older sisters. That's what's gonna happen. But at the same, on the flip side of that, he's gonna be spoiled and very well protected. So that's a blessing within itself. Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Lionel Lightborn. I'm a father to a tribe of 7 young adults, 3 young women, 4 young men, 1 granddaughter, and 1 grandson. And it's always a pleasure to be here.
And brother Ross, I don't know if you are hearing us. Not if you can't come through now, I know you'll come in because you definitely, have plenty of things to say and get to the point.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear, brother. Welcome.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Leonard Ross. I'm the father of 3, 2 girls, and 1 man in the middle. Tomorrow I'll be a proud father of my first high school graduate.
All right, congratulations.
So I'm looking forward to that. And again, every conversation I've attended has been very thought provoking. I've actually thought about this topic for the past week. Just like it was so powerful the last conversation. So again, thank you all for allowing me to join.
Well, let me say this: the pleasure is all ours. If you don't join, we don't have a comment. This is not a, again. Let me say to people again: I'm Dr. Ron, the curator of the Fatherhood Think Tank, and an important part I like to share with people is that if fathers don't come on and they don't think about, they don't add their contribution to the think tank won't run. It's not, we don't ask people to donate, we don't ask people to put money in, we don't ask people to help sponsor this or doing. All we ask you to do is to come and share your knowledge and your experience of fatherhood based on the topics. I mean, I don't know if that's to me, that's a very fair fee that we asked and that we wanted to have. And I think because I think for me the knowledge is when I can hear from other fathers, and I think this accounts. I think as long as we've been doing this Lightborn, and especially Ed, and this is even before this virtual platform, we knew that we went to get in a room with men and fathers, mainly the fathers, we learned something, no matter what we thought we already knew. And we also got another perspective in things that we might have had one perspective on based on seeing a real live father who we could hear and see express that feeling of what happened. And so again, I know I find it never, and I'm glad that you don't think it's robbery to come on and continue to support the show and be here live and talk and contribute. Because I know there's some platforms people go to and they don't get to say nothing. They and if they do, it's question and you don't know what you're talking about, or you don't. Again, that's not, we're a think tank, so we're not the place for that. We're looking for every father's voice and opinion, and even if some people, a lot of times we have people in the chat who went mothers and people in the chat. We take those things on as well. It's not like it's just our own agenda and what we think. We want to be very, and I consider myself to be a very transparent person about things, and I think transparency helps better understand and learn. When you can learn transparently. So let's get into this tonight. So I was, last week we were talking about this. We kind of got lost into the sauce of the part, but the part of who is not and who it is. But I want to really get into the real nitty gritties of what the pros and cons are, because I want to be very clear in thinking of this and thinking on the strength of the positives, because strengths, even if you is a con can also be a strength. We live in a society, and I have to tell this very often, and I I hate that we live in a society kind of like this today. Is that people would rather look for the bad that's going to happen, or anticipate in something bad being in the conversation, instead of maybe looking to the positive or just the optimistic view of the conversation. They're looking for the sell pitch, or they're looking for what they think can't happen. So when we're thinking about overall, and I want to make this, I want to make a comment. I think I want to talk a little bit about age, and age when it comes to fatherhood, some of the factors that involve age that makes a difference in consensual fatherhood, and what some of the things. Because sometimes we look at this, and we didn't touch on this week, but becoming a older father has distinct pros and cons. Older dads often possess more patience because they have learned this idea of patience. Definitely, many of those dads have financial stability. They have this in many cases. I'm not going to ever say anything indefinite, because once you do that, somebody will come and tell you about somebody who is an older father who don't have none of these things. And I'm talking about saying that let's just entertain me for a minute. I'm not saying it's the facts and the truth, not written in stone. Emotional readiness for children in child care, so they are ready and they know what that means. However, as men age, they face some decreased fertility, so they may not, be able to. In many instances of this part of being the advanced prenatal age, could slightly increase their risk of genetic mutations and certain developmental challenges. And I can just speak to some of this that I've learned. And this doesn't have to be fact. I'm just saying what I've learned in my experience as being a special educator working with a certain population. A lot of times I've seen, especially when I was working on the other side of Miramar, the other side of 75 in Miramar, on the other side, I've seen a lot of more senior fathers who had all of those, they had the ability to finance, they had those things, but they also end up having their children having some, because of the advance in their age, having some intellectual and sometimes intellectual, some autism. You see some disabilities from those child. I'll just say that again. I sometimes like the reference, but I'm not saying this is a fact of every situation. With some of the cases I've seen, a lot of times those relationships then were strained when that child had some disabilities, right? Had some, I guess, perspection, or some, plans of what the child should have been, or how the child should have been. And a lot of times those mothers were the first time mothers. Sometimes the fathers wasn't first time fathers, but they came into those things. So thinking of that, and
Ron must have froze. I'm sitting there.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the completion of that that thought.
That was weird.
Yeah, but I think I can build on where he left off at. You can still hear us on Leonard?
Yeah, real quick. I really wasn't finished, but I do want to congratulate you, Ed, before we continue. So I want to make sure I get that out there. But yeah, I can hear y'all.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
no,
you.
because he was going on the perspective of and I think it's a very important position to start from when he said consensual, because I think this speaks to the very pro of consensual fatherhood when you're facing a con like challenges with your children. And so that's a great place to try to highlight some pros. Because I'm going to tell you something, when you don't understand the pros of consensual fatherhood until you face the cons of your child. whether it be challenges, be it mentally, physically, economically, behaviorally, or unfortunately, when it comes to just being defiant. And so, how does consensual fatherhood play a role in your ability to be a father when those when those cons rather shows up in your children? And I think that's what he was talking about when he said something about, the fathers were well able and well off to have children, but the fact that they were so up in age when they had the children, then it ran the risk of certain disabilities and different things showing up in their children because of them having children at a later age. So I understand that. And what does that look like when it comes to being a consensual father? Because we know some fathers and some parents in general, mothers as well, there becomes a certain, and not so much a compromise, but the relationship becomes a casualty when you're facing the challenge of having a child that you didn't expect to have. I don't want to say having a child you don't want, because that usually breeds abortion, but having a child you didn't expect to have versus having an abortion. When you think that you're not ready for a child, automatically we will push the abortion button. But when you talk about having a child, the child gets here and you say, wow, my child is here. And then it takes usually about 3 to 4 or 3 to 5 years to really, and Leonard, you can speak to this, to really detect what type of issues a child may have, because you may not see it in the first 3 years. But after that 3 to 5 years, that's when it starts to show up. That's when you start to get, because I don't think you can actually get a diagnosis or a testing or a legitimate testing for a child, his intellectual capacities until about after age 5 or 6 anyway. I think you can correct me on that if you want, Leonard. Ron would say he could definitely correct me, correct me on it. But that's why all of us are here to try to, just solidify each other's points. But consensual fatherhood, when it comes to issues with your child, what does consensual fatherhood look like then, when your child is in a position you didn't expect them to be in? You understand? So can you see yourself wanting to be a child be a father rather to a child you didn't expect to have? And that's a conversation I think I'm glad he brought that up, because I couldn't really see that until I either, number one, in my personal life experience it, and number two, start to have empathy for people who are experiencing it rather, that I never thought about. And I don't think we ever give a thought to parents with special needs children, because our children are not special needs. And so what does it look like to want a child, right, that you didn't expect to have? That's what I'm talking about. Because remember, consensual just means something you want, something you bought into, or better yet, I think, Linda, you said it perfectly last week. You gave the clear definition of it. And so what does it look like? What does do you still want to be a father for a child you just didn't expect to have, or issues in a child you didn't expect to have? So I'm just going to leave that right there, because I don't want to hog up the time, and I was trying to kill the dead air, wait for Ron to pop back on.
Well, can I add this? Well,
go ahead,
I want to add another one, and this is actually a real life experience I just dealt with over the weekend. A friend of mine's son came out as homosexual over the weekend, and his initial reaction, I'm not even sure if his reaction has changed, was disownership. And that's a real topic that has to be addressed with fathers as well, because my specialty is really substance abuse, and a lot of the substance abuse and traumatic events, it's geared around acceptance from the parents, whether it's homosexuality, whether there's deformities, whether there's, again, not wanting the baby from the mother. It leads to a lot of traumatic feelings for that child. And but I definitely thought that was another one we need to put on the list because it's taboo. And the first thing he came out and said it's against God's will. So then that challenges our spiritual beliefs as a parent. So I definitely wanted to throw that out there because all of us are fathers. I haven't been through it yet. I don't know what to expect. I mean, I do think that I would like to say I will be a little bit more open because of the clinical background I have and experience I've had with seeing what the opposite looks like if you're not open to it. But I think, but then that brings me to the point of me mentioning this, the disownership and telling his son that you're no longer my son, and that kind of like throw me through a loop. Like, again, we're all fathers, so I just can't imagine watching something grow up, and because of their decision in life, now I don't want you to be my child anymore. So that's the piece I want to add to it, because it creates a traumatic event for that child. Again, why doesn't my parent want me? What's wrong with me? So that's what I want to add to that. So
But Leonard, you 100%. But guess what? You hit it right on the head because it's not what they call it. It's universal what we talk about. So when you talk about consensual fatherhood, that's a universal trust choice when it comes to fathers, right? Or being a father, right? Consensual fatherhood or non-consensual fatherhood, and on the flip side of it. But what you just explained was both. You could explain consensual fatherhood before the kid came out. The dad was a proud father of a child that who I expected to have. And then it became non-consensual fatherhood when he became a child I didn't expect to have, right? And so what you're saying is 100% on point. But when it becomes universal, it's because it manifests itself in different things. What we spoke about earlier is what does the consent look like when you have a child you didn't expect to have and you hit it right on the point. You just took gave another aspect of it, but it's literally the same thing. Because whether you got a child with a disability, whether you got a child with a different choice in sexuality, it's still your child. So now all of a sudden we pivot the consent because the child didn't look like the child we thought we should have, or better yet, or the child we used to be. Those are usually the children we're more familiar with. Not so much the children we have, but the children we used to be. So we're trying to raise the children we used to be versus the child that we have. And so what you said was spot on. I'm thinking about some more situations. But what I'm gonna do is let Chen in, because he looked like his brain is kicking in overtime.
Oh man, that was a deep thought that I guess I had never even considered. And maybe the deep thoughtedness look came from, well, if a father is initially consenting and then a situation changes, does the father have a right to change his consent signature from yay to nay? Or I guess that's the question. Can a father, or does the father have the right to change his mind? I don't know if that's me giving feedback.
No, that wrong too. No, that was me. Something happened. I don't know what happened. Listen, this happened all the time. Sometimes the Wi-Fi at the studio just goes bazonka. Maybe, I'm not gonna say like my good friend Tylon. he say that somebody shadow banning, somebody don't want us to say these things that we're saying, so they cut the Wi-Fi. Or maybe it just got a crappy Wi-Fi connection in my
just technical difficulties.
Yeah. But I think that as we're talking at this conversation, and you said I seen the wow. I felt the wow moment, and I thought, like when you hit it right on the head, is that when we're talking about this consensual thing, I think so often we want to stay a focus on against the mom and the dad, and it's not about that. It's not about that. It's about us as the man and the father that we are, what we are vested into or what we're not vested into. And we take if we take Brother Ross's scenario, let's take his case study, and we begin to break it down, you will find people that will become 50-50 on both sides of that. And some people will say, I love my kid to death, but if they do this and that, and you want to say, I don't know if I can, for me, and I mean, I say if this is right or wrong, but for me, I don't know if I can buy that. I can't buy it because of my own belief system and my own faith, right? I understand it because I've worked in situations that even been more difficult than this, where parents had children who changed completely, complained their gender, changed who they was, and they told everybody they had to either acknowledge and accept them as who it was, or they didn't want to deal with them at all. And the parents, some of these parents were dealing with a loss of their original child, instead of looking at a transfer from their original child to their new child. And so they wanted to fight that, hey, my child has their own life to live, but I want them to still live the life I think they should. I think, and guess what? That is some tradition. Listen, in the Black culture history, we can see that there are family members in the Black history, transgenerational history, that your parents didn't want you to do certain things because it was going to threaten your life and you would be different than how they were, right? So this is not some strange phenomenon that is brand new. This is something that is long going. The question is, how do we come around? And I think that looking at this idea that we're talking about, consensual fatherhood, is that how do we come around to accept our children no matter what situation they come to us and how they come? If I don't have a son, but if I had a son and he came and told me that his name is no longer Ron Jr., his name is Ronika, and I need to acknowledge him as dad or what have you, yes, I think that I would, from my professional opinion, how I know how to handle it, I would tell him, you have to also give me time, because you did this, right? You did it to change who you was. I need to also go through the process, because you didn't just do it overnight. You didn't just become Ron to Ronisha overnight. You battled and dealt with this your way. I have to also do the same thing. I have to begin to manage and figure out, okay, this is my son. My son's going to be this person. How do I work into this, and how do I develop to realize that he's not my son no more? Now he's my daughter. How do I fix my mouth, who naturally said all these years watching him do this and watching him do that, that he's not that. Now, as a father, sometimes you have to let go of your insecurities. That's going to come with that. And I was talking to my partner about when people present things to the public, and then when the public finds out, now you got to deal with it, and it makes you have anxiety. And give an example, telling something about your relationship that you really shouldn't tell people, right? And when you tell them, I use a perfect example of what we was talking about. We're talking about a lady who was saying she went to one of these relationship shows, and she went to present and say, hey, I found out that my boyfriend is here with some other lady while I'm here with my girlfriend. And the point of that was, why did you present that? Why did you put that in the atmosphere? Because didn't y'all talk about you coming to the show, or was this a hidden thing you didn't know? Was this why are you involving other people? Because now you're looking for those other people to now cause you grief, or even be supportive or be non-supportive. And that causes a lot of conflict on you really dealing with the issue that is, if you have a problem with him going out, where was the conversation that y'all had before? Same thing. If you have a real problem and issue with your child being deciding that they want to be a non-heterosexual person, they want to be, because again, you have to find out what they want to be, right? So sometimes them wanting to be a non-heterosexual person does not mean that they want to be exclusively a homosexual person, right? Because we have a different platform that people use in the LBG community. They might just want to be non-binary, non-conforming. They want to be transsexual, but not transsexual. There's so much that if you don't know, if you don't have this conversation, but I think it's naturally our defense mechanism, thinking as a father wanting our child to be the man, especially with our men, because I think sometimes fathers will let it go with a daughter, but not so much with their son. Like, I'm a man, so my son need to be the same kind of man I'm going to be. And who says that he can't be the same kind of, if he changes to be a, see, and there goes the difficulty in that conversation, or what, how that works out. So I definitely, that's a rough one, guys. That's a rough one. Ross, you really you just threw a grenade in there, my brother. A nice big grenade.
Yeah. So Dr. Ron, I guess I still haven't got an answer to my question. Can you change consent midfield, given a situation? Are you allowed to do that?
See, Ed, you are bringing some of these nuances that have established in our society, because it becomes subjective, right? If you are involved with someone, right, presently, you could have a consent, a sexual consent, and I like to use that because that's the one that men know better. They got a better understanding. You have a sexual consent for something, and then in the middle of the act, the consent is taken away. You're in the middle of the act. You could, if they say, hey, I didn't consent for you to, and I'll use a perfect example, one that I've seen that ended up being almost brought to be a legal case. Consent for having sex that was consensual with well, here we're talking about fatherhood, right? It was consensual long as they used contraception that was a condom, right? And in the middle of the act, they took the condom off. At that moment, the act that was consented on was no longer consensual. So we got legislation, we got laws, we got, as I like to say, precedents being started to somebody to go and say, yeah, it is, I'm able to break my consent of being a consensual father if my child does something that I think that, and again, I'm not going to say if it's wrong or right. I'm going to say I believe that is a very difficult thing to do, especially when it comes to being a father or a parent to a child, because they are not they're not to do your willing or your bidding. They weren't born for that. They were born for you to nurture, raise, prepare them for their own life, not the life you wanted to. And sometimes I see that as not letting your children be who they find themselves to be. And I think that I think there comes a part of being a parent that you would have to really investigate and be curious and really engage with your child about their decision of becoming who they want to become and how they want to become. Listen.
I'm gonna push back on you after you finish a minute.
Because one of the things I say all the time is that we're talking about this in a negative context, right? Something that is unfavorable to people. But if I was a nothing dad who was living doing nothing, and I wanted my child to do nothing, I wanted him to be just like me, a nothing person, sell dope, rob people, do this. And this is what I wanted him to participate in. And he made a decision to break from that and do something different than me. Is that the same? Would that become the same kind of argument? And I say this all the time, that when it comes to a negative thing, we see things and we can justify saying, oh, that thing's negative to our aspect. But when it's reversed, when we turn these things on the head, and now we're talking about something positive, where you're going to be a better man than me, you're going to do things better than me. And again, I have a core feeling that men and fathers want their kids to be better than them and do better than them. But also, does that mean that your son can't be better than you if he's homosexual and do better in his life? That's the question we have in that presentation of the case conception.
No, I like Leonard's case because it's a great case study. And Leonard, we're not trying to make you a case study, but the scenario that you just presented was very interesting. I'm gonna tell you why, and I'm gonna tell you why it puts you at a disadvantage, Ron. Ron, I listened to your whole argument. My wife in the back trying to give me words. You feed me words. So I listened to your whole argument, and you're right. I'm on board 100%. The problem is your argument lack theological or biblical fundamentals, and because it does,
I will agree. I think right there is where the rubber meets the road, right?
Right.
As a circular therapist that I am, right? Mm-hmm. To deal with people circularly, right? There would be a difference in it. I would not interject any religion or those things into what I would say, because then now our session would end, because they would say, well, you believe the only reason I'm it's, and again, I think there's other ways sometimes that you don't have to use fire and brimstone to get people to see things in another way. Because I think that sometimes that becomes I use a fire and brimstone approach.
Right.
And then it becomes a kind of issue.
I can agree with that, because what you did was you just separate the stereotypes. Fire and brimstone is a stereotype. Grace and mercy is the reality. And so when grace and mercy becomes the reality, because you got to understand, even the Bible is a curriculum within itself. The problem is people fail to study it. And so when it's time to apply it in a situation like what Leonard just brought up, then they're going to fall short, because they know a lot of DSM-5 and DSM-2 and 3 or whatever. They know everything about the DSM and nothing about the Bible. And so they can only talk about DSM. For the people who don't know about DSM, that's just the mental health Bible. It's technically the mental health Bible. And so when you know more about the mental health Bible than you know about the Bible within itself, then you can't address the whole context of everything what Leonard just said, because he just brought up two contexts. He brought the fact that his son came out as the father's son came out as a homosexual, and his reason and rationale for not accepting his son as a homosexual is because of his biblical principles. Now you got to find the medium, because now you have to know just as much Bible as you know mental health Bible, right? And so I can come down to the medium because I know just as much Bible as I know, because of my profession makes me have to know mental health Bible. But my personal life makes me know the legitimate or the practical Bible or theological Bible. And so when I listen to what he said, my medium is this. I'm like, okay, how would you approach this? Because you got to remember, you're right, God, and I mean, the Bible does say God does not, doesn't say he doesn't accept, because he can accept you in whatever condition you come to him in. That's not a problem. God is not going to reject you because of your sin. That's not the problem. And I'm not saying homosexuality is not a sin, because it is. But what I will say is, I'm like, okay, but if your son was a whoremonger, because God see this, God see being a whoremonger just as much as he sees being a homosexual. And so I think as fathers, we're very selective in our sins, and we would applaud our sons being whoremongers but not being homosexual. And so the Bible usually, and the Bible mandates that we rightfully divide the word of truth. And so don't say that you're gonna be proud of your son being a whoremonger and then embarrassed by him being a homosexual. Oh, my son is a ladies' man. And so we would give license and credence, and we would even give grace to him being a whoremonger, because we'll say, oh, he just sowing his coming to America, sowing his
royal oats.
Or how we rationalize it is he just weighing his options, and then we'll throw God in the equation to validate the whoremongering and say, oh, he's just waiting for God to send him the right person. You'll be surprised, Ron. You don't understand the level of games we play on both sides. But what I will say this, I'm like, listen, if you're going to be correct, and particularly in this particular father, I'm like, if you should accept, don't be selective in your sins. If you're going to either accept all of it or none of it. The fact of the matter is, God didn't call you to be that man's judge. That's number one. He called you to be his father. Your job is, and when the Bible says, because I think we misconstrue this a lot, the Bible says, raise up a child in the way you would have them go, and when they get older, they will not depart from it. Where this become a problem at is because we don't understand that we're supposed to raise them up in the way they would go, and when it comes to God's will versus our will, that's where it gets misconstrued. And so we just kind of confuse God's will with our will, when the fact that I'm like, listen, I'm raising you to love God in whatever condition that you're in. You understand? And to seek God in whatever condition, and acknowledge God in whatever condition that you're in for his approval, not mine. And so when the Bible tells you to come as you are, don't ask me why all these scriptures coming, because they are. When the Bible tells you to come as you are, if I raise my child, right, to love the Lord, then it's going to come a day, no matter whatever condition he's in. He could be homosexual or a straight up crackhead. He may even be a killer. You understand? But if he can find the God in whatever condition that he's in, then I would have raised him up and really fulfilled what the Bible says. Raise up a child in the way you would have him to go. I don't want him to come for my approval. I'm not raising my child for my approval. I'm raising my child for God's approval, and that's where we confuse things. And so you got to discern, and as a godly man, you got to decide whether you're raising your child for God's approval or your approval, and that's where the rubber really meets the road. I'm gonna just leave it right there for now.
So Lightborn, I appreciate that generous perspective. So Brother Ross used the word that stuck out to me, that his son's father said disownership, which is different than disapproval. Disownership is like you're the kid is on loan to you, basically, by God for you to rear uh, as best as you know how. And then when they reach of age, hopefully they have the ability to go off and do their own thing. So when it comes to disownership, that's why I asked the question: Are you able to change your consensual fatherhood midstream? Because that introduces almost like a morality uh, issue, an ethical integrity type issue, because um, I like the scripture that you brought up when the Bible talks about train up a child according to his way. Now, I agree with that interpretation. I would like to add that I have come to know more about that particular passage in a way that when when God gives you that child, that you are to study that child and understand that child's bent, if you will, and you allow God to mature that child, to use you to help guide and direct that child according to his bent. In other words, you don't want to destroy something internally that God placed in that kid because you didn't take time to understand this kid. Uh, you didn't take any opportunity to study that kid to be able to guide that kid along the path to be able to see God. Um, so um, disownership is such a, oh man, that's what made me look uh, at that concept or that situation a lot differently, because when the father said disownership, I'm like, wow, do we even have a right to disown a kid? Um, I remember raising my boys, specifically letting him know to be very careful about their choices, because one bad choice, can send you down a road that's very difficult to recover from. And just remember to consider the potential outcomes of the choices that you make. And I specifically use the analogy, if you do something wrong and you go to jail, I'm not going to try and bail you out if you actually got proven that you did something wrong. I'm not going to coddle you. I'm not going to uh, babysit you or anything like that. You will serve whatever time the judge. I will love you from jail if you did something wrong. Um, but if if I were faced with my kid coming to me about their gender identity, uh, yeah, I still pose that question. Do you have a right, a moral right to be able to change your consensual fatherhood?
Ron, I mean,
Lightborn, you're muted.
okay, I wanted to say, Leonard, you want to jump in before I get in? No, don't worry about it. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, to your point, Tenny, and you're 100% right on that. From a biblical perspective, when I weigh the information that was given, as far as disownership, then I'm like, okay, well, because now this is the main responsibility, not even a moral. This is the main responsibility. Matter of fact, it's not even a responsibility; it's a mandate, right? This is a godly, biblical mandate, right? You're mandated to treat your children as a father like God treats you like a child. That's a mandate. And so when it comes to this situation, I'm like, okay, how do God treat you? Because if God have a right to disown you, and God knows he do, you understand? That's a fact. God has more of a right to disown us as his children than we do to disown our own children, and that's a fact. Because only we know the things that we do. You understand? We know our own sins greater than anybody else, be it in deed or thought, because you're equally as guilty. This is why that Bible knowledge is very important. And so you're right. He will never have a right to disown his child, because God will never disown him. But if he put himself in a predicament to disown his child, then he's gonna, you understand? Even though God was like, I will not disown you. You understand? But he will reap the consequences of thinking that he could. That's the reality of it. Because one thing of God is going to not leave you unchastised. Because he said, whom thou lovest, thou chastise. And so it's going to be a learning curve for anybody that think they could do that. To know that God can love you through all your sins. And you can't love your child through one of them. And that's the reality. So I think a lot of times, and I think people always try to separate. I'm like, no. If you want to have the holistic child, or the holistic person, or the holistic experience, you got to factor in all of it, all the things that make people better. Yes, mental health makes people better, but biblical health actually does as well. And so when you're talking about dealing with, and let me just really sum it up and be more practical with it, what people can understand. When you're talking about mental health, you're talking about dealing with just limiting yourself to the mental ability of a person's capacity, right? People don't understand what spiritual health really is and the importance of it. And the importance of it and I love this because I'm Black, so I can actually teach it from this perspective. African, particularly Africans in America at that particular time, the slave owners, and particularly with Willie Lynch, they sought to not break your mental capacity. You know what their whole goal was? To keep you permanently in slavery. And this is what actual spirituality caters to break your will. So your faith is not attached to your mental capacity. Your faith is actually attached to your will. Faith builds will. Never forget that scientifically that can actually be proven. So faith doesn't build mental, it builds will. That means even if your mental break, you still have the ability, because of your will and a strong will, to rebuild your mental capacity. That's what we haven't learned yet. And so if you think you can have one without the other, you're sadly mistaken. And that's what I love about this Fatherhood Think Tank, because it brings about discoveries we have yet even tapped. Trust me, we haven't even tapped where we're getting ready to go right now. Because the level of mental trauma that's getting ready to happen not just in America, in the world, we're not even prepared to deal with it. I can tell you that factually. And I can see it coming. Because guess what? I'm seeing it in my own personal life, and I never thought I would even experience what I'm getting ready to experience, what I'm experiencing right now. And so when you tapped in, Ron, to consensual fatherhood, it touched. I think on the surface, I thought it was a bunch of nonsense. But when I start, and this is what God is just so just, God said, Lionel, my thoughts are not your thoughts. So what you think is nonsense, you understand? It's going to be your life work. And so here you are bringing up something, Ron, I thought was nonsense, and it's going to turn out to be my life's work. And so, and again, I'm not above saying I apologize, and I'm not above saying I was wrong. And guess what? Circumstances and life experiences that show that, you know what, I was wrong and I can be wrong. And I can, guess what? I can tell you I can apologize for it. I don't mind being wrong because I can't go nowhere but up after being wrong, or get right after being wrong. So I'm gonna leave it where it's at. But I appreciate you guys.
You know, I think this is a perfect example of why this think tank is so important, right? Because it's not until you, like, yes, the presenting of non-consensual fatherhood seems like an excuse, right? Sound like some kind of excuse type of thing, right? But again, I'm presenting it because I've also looked at the consensual part of fatherhood and overall how fathers should, and it's just giving it a name, right? It's just giving some titles and some names, some buzzwords to what we're saying. But it's not until we really have these conversations do we able to really digest what it really means. I remember we had a show a long time ago about who is your father, and it was about like, and the conversation was about like, are you living your life like the father you follow? If you follow the Lord Jesus Christ as your father, if you follow Muhammad, if you follow Buddha, how are you doing that? And how is that affecting and isomorphicing, passing down to how you're dealing with your children, right? Because you want the Lord to do something for you in a certain way, in the way you want him to handle you, but are you doing that same thing for your children? Are you saying, well, he's better than me, I don't have to be as good as him, I don't have to do things the way he do, I could just ask him to give me mercy and grace, but I don't have to give my kids mercy and grace because I'm human, or I'm not a God, I'm not the Lord. No, listen, one thing I always said about Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. You know, people be saying, who better, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James? I know people love Kobe Bryant, but to me, Kobe Bryant was just, his role model was Michael Jordan. And he did everything he could to look identical to Michael Jordan. Now that made him his own person, Kobe Bryant, but you didn't get anything really different from him. Like when we talk about LeBron. Like LeBron is different, and people say LeBron he don't got tenacity, he don't got this. But you know what I noticed LeBron did have, and he's had the whole time he played basketball? A fatherhood spirit, right? I just keep it very real. And maybe it's because the society we live in is more public, and you can see and you can be involved. But LeBron has shown us in a sense of being this kind of father, and you begin to see it with a lot. I won't even say just him. Also, Steph Curry, those guys, this new generation, and I'm only saying it because we're in the NBA playoffs, right? But these guys are very father oriented. Their kids are in the court and places that kids really shouldn't be. Our kids wouldn't have been in the past. And a great example is that. And so how have we developed and begin to change? But again, that's because we live in a society where there's more exposure to even talk about and make that comfortable to even do. And like we're doing here, yes, again, I also had it as a theory in my dissertation, non-consensual fatherhood. But it was only to present that there is this fatherhood, consensual, that's really important for our children, that a lot of people don't practice because they're stuck on non-consensual fatherhood, right? They stuck on it. They're stuck on the escape route, or the reason to not have to live up to the cons of consensual fatherhood, right? It's like it's the excuse. And I can admit, I have the ability in many instances, even if I don't want to, as a father, to lie down in a non-consensual fatherhood bed, right? But that doesn't change my core feeling that I wanted to be, and still will strive to be a consensual father. See, that's where this is where conversation and hearing things and processing and digesting and regurgitating and all of the things that you begin to do to decide that, hey, I'm really thinking about this in a whole nother light. And really, I'm thinking about it not by what Lightborn said, not what E. Tenney said, not what Dr. Ron said, not what Leonard said, but what I heard and what I'm rethinking about for myself in conversations I may have outside of watching the Fatherhood Think Tank or what I commented on the phone. You are starting to then do that yourself, and that's changing your perspective and your idea on not just the topic we're talking about, but the topic is about what kind of father I am. How do I be a better father? What does that look like? All those things come into play. And it's not done again, like I said, with a bat telling you sorry, you got to step up. It's coming with logic, reason, something that men have a natural nick for most of the time. If you can get them to sit down to have that conversation. But if you can't get them to sit down, they'll go with the brute mentality. The reaction mentality, not the, sometimes let me think about what I'm going to do. So listen, I'm ecstatic, man, because this conversation, and I just want to make a reference about what Lightborn said. Here, and let me show the example of how we understand the time has changed. We were talking about DMS-5, right? There was a time when the DMS-5 was completely in line with the Bible and Scripture, right? Completely. Any of these things that you did was a mental health issue, and you need to be locked up, or you'll be diagnosed. And as time has gone, you can't even find many of those things, even still in the DMS-5. They have moved out because of time and how the majority of the majority of people have these things and they become normalized. And I love to say this as an international person, as a therapist who work in the atmosphere of the system. When we move from outside of this system of America we're in and move into other countries, none of that shit even matters. They don't have no bipolar people. They don't have no schizophrenic people because they don't have a system that established that. They may have people who might be mad. They would call them just mad people, but you don't have people now picking up being mad, right? Or saying, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing because I'm mad. That's a madman over there. And I don't want to be a madman, so I'm going to stay and do the thing. And if I am feeling like I'm a madman, I need to go and check. There's not going to be like I said, there's not going to be an excuse for it. It's not going to be a reason for it.
Ron, you're on point. I'm gonna go back biblical again, because when you read about it's a very interesting character too. The guy that they chose over Jesus, right, to crucify. They set him free and they crucified Jesus. And Barabbas, right? So Barabbas, and now this is because there's two narratives about Barabbas. One narrative have a mental health diagnosis about Barabbas that he's a madman, right? That's one notion or one stereotype. But then there's another stereotype that said he was a revolutionary. It's amazing, ain't it? So here we got one narrative saying, oh, he was just a madman. Depending on who's saying the narrative. Then we got another narrative saying that, oh no, he was a revolutionary. And here's the thing about it. He was a Jewish revolutionary, which means he was fighting against the very oppression of Jewish people at that particular time that Christ died for, right? It's amazing. And I'm saying to myself, this is why where the Bible becomes, because I'm like, hey, no, you need to study all the books you can, particularly all the books that improve lives globally, not the books that that's boxed, not those boxed books, but the books that contribute to life globally, and everybody can point to saying this is one of the books that's life-changing. So I'm talking about life-changing books being the Bible, and guess what? To a certain extent, the DSM 1, 2, and 5. I'm not against the DS 1, 2, and 5. What I am against is the hypocrisy of it. You understand? You can't tell me at one point and then not acknowledge it, saying, "Oh, there's stereotypes against my profession," right? And not understand it, and not acknowledge the fact that your profession, it was in the very business of actually perpetuating those stereotypes. That's a fact. And so I think most of the time we don't have what they call the whole argument, or not even so much the whole argument, because I don't argue, but let's have the whole discussion. And that's what I love about, because me and Leonard have history. Me and Leonard, I think he was Leonard was interning at Barry University at the time. He was licensed, on his way to being a licensed clinical mental health specialist. And again, I just love being among greatness. You understand? Because when Leonard came in, him and a plethora of people, I think I was in a blessed situation to see them be who they are. Him, Shirley, and so many other great clinical. And guess what? All of them are clinical mental health specialists right now. All of them. I mean, you just saw them coming in. And so I didn't mind, and I'm big on it. You see what I do on this show? It's actually what I did in our personal friendship. It never changed. It's the same MO. And so, because when you see greatness, it's nothing, you should be excited. I'm like a celebrity when I get around greatness. So I saw Leonard greatness way before he, became who he is right now. Same thing with Shirley. Same thing with other plethora who have just moved on and they're all doing great things. Same thing I see with Teenie, because same thing I seen with Ron when I didn't think me and Ron was gonna make it. We were too much alike. I really didn't. But it turned out to be one of the most phenomenal friendships that I had. And I'm talking about one of new friendships, because I'm not in the business of creating, making new friends. That's the strangest part about me. You would think I'm not really good at making friends. But the contentions breed friendships that will last a lifetime. And most of my great friendships started out the way that me and Ron started out, and just it never really changed. It always started out where I didn't like them or they didn't like me, and it turned into a long-lasting lifetime friendship. And so when I see great things happening, I like to be a part of it. But at the premature stage, I knew you guys was great when I saw you, and so I already knew right there. I'm like, oh, this is a perfect place to be. to guess what? To be who I am. And if it's real, and if it's genuine, and most importantly, if it's strong, it will not only be able to handle me, it'll be strong enough to grow me. That's the Fatherhood Think Tank. And so if you've never been on this before, don't be afraid to really become a part of something that may not be, that you think that may not be able to handle you, but in some cases, that would be necessary to grow you. And that's what happened with me with the Fatherhood Think Tank. That's why I'm here every Tuesday rather. And that's why I just look forward to just hearing whatever comes, because I know something new will happen on here every time. And here it is, Leonard, who can't even talk on the show, planted something that sparked a whole lot of something else, and he can't even talk on the show to contribute to
it. and not only that, like, I think this the fascinating part of it is it sparked back to the original conversation that we wanted to get to, and gave us a great conceptual way to look at it and understand it. Because so often people will take things and make it about differences, but not really looking at what we were able to do tonight. In the little bit that Leonard said, hey, I threw this out, throw this grenade out here, but I'm doing some other stuff as I'm listening. And now we had to handle it, right? And maybe that's how it works, because he couldn't come back, right? So he couldn't give any more. So we had to think. We had to put more to the conversation. And so we really flushed out what it was. And it came back to what? This is a very major issue about understanding, how are you being this kind of consensual father? And what does that really mean? And what does that look like? Like, here is a pro and a con right here in the conversation we're having. The pro is that you will stand on your principles and your values and your morals, but the con is the complete opposite of all. You lose your principles and your morals and the compass that you stand on when you do it. So you it's a paradox. It's a double paradox, actually. So it's this is how powerful it is. And if we're able to look at it, and people are, I know this is not so deep, but it is kind of deep. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, it seemed deep. Oh, that looks deep. But that look like shallow water, and you get your feet in, and you up to your ankle, and you take 2 steps, and you're all the way down at the bottom of the abyss. This is how serious this conversation kind of went. We didn't, and that's not. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't planned. It was a conversation of the fathers and us talking, and it coming through. So I hope that people who have listened, people who watch this later, I hope you're getting some of this profoundness. Maybe even getting some of this for yourself to understand, because this is a powerful thing, and I have to really, without no point in my mind, agree 100% with Lightborn that we are heading to some stuff that people are not even caring or paying attention to. They're not. They're busy being and thinking everything's gonna be all right. But if you're not investigating, and I'm not here bringing Dr. Doom. I'm just saying that if you're just living this, I'm living surviving, right? But I'm not. I stopped living and surviving. I live my life now. I don't survive. So I also have time to look at the life I want to live in the world I'm living in, and the things that I'm seeing, things that I'm exposing and being caught. Yo, it's some questionable things happening out here. Not the stuff that's in your TikTok, your Instagram, your face. I'm talking about the stuff that's behind that stuff. The stuff that you're not seeing because you're busy worrying about Dr. Shannon Bryant. You worry about her. You don't need to worry about her. She's unimportant to what's really behind her that we're not seeing because we're focusing on her. And if she got degrees or not degrees, who cares? Your degrees might not even matter in 6 years. None of that even matters if you don't pay attention to the stuff that's going on.
So Dr. Ron, if you'll allow me to be transparent, I hope that doesn't scare you guys, but I became a consensual father as a stepdad. And I knew what I was getting into. In fact, I became a part of the Fatherhood Think Tank as a means of trying to be the best stepdad, because I've never been one. The best stepdad I could possibly be. That was my impetus for joining the Fatherhood Think Tank, because there's always something new I could learn, a perspective I could glean from, and been appreciative of the think tank ever since. So my consensual fatherhood, because of the relationship status, has changed. I guess I was, how to describe it, I want to frame it in the best possible way. I am no longer a stepdad. So my consent to being a father over that child is no longer there for me. That's no longer an option. I don't have relationship to be able to consent to a fatherhood. So I guess I'm throwing that scenario as a stick in the flame of this conversation, maybe.
And the flame stick in the spoke of the wheel. It's in the flame, because the flame is gonna burn up. But if you throw it in the spoke of the wheel, we about to do a flip.
Okay, I'll take that one. So in situations like that, where I was happily volunteering in consensual fatherhood, and now it's not. because of relationship status. How do you reconcile that? Because it was not necessarily my choice to be a non-consensual father at this point.
No, I'll take it, Ron. And Teeny, I hear your heart because I know your circumstances. I'll say this, and I'm going to go back to that scripture again: raise up the child in the way you'd have them go, and when they get old, they will not depart from it. And I was just paraphrasing, but that scripture plays out so much in your life, right? Because what you did, because you were a consensual father, and you planted something that is going to take time to actually reap. It's going to take time to grow. It's going to take time to manifest. And it's going to take time to become the fruit that it's supposed to be. Not so much that you need it to be, but it's become the fruit that it needs to be, if that makes any sense. Now, when it becomes the fruit that it needs to be, it not only feeds the father, but it also feeds the child as well. And so with me saying that simply means that whatever, when you was a consensual father to him, and I believe that you was exactly the best father you can be to him. I don't think you short him or your stepchild no more than, because you don't know how to be nothing less than the father you are. That's a fact. And so when you're that father, you understand, whether it's a stepchild or your biological child, it's still the same seed that you planted. And so with that stepchild, that harvest, it's going to manifest itself. No matter what the circumstances is between you and his mother's relationship, whatever is planted, it's planted. It's going to grow. Now, if weeds can grow, and you got to understand, weeds are like renegade seeds. That means that's unintended planting. They just fail with no intention at all. But your seeds was very intentional. You understand? And those seeds live in that particular child that you raised. And so when that child becomes an adult, that's when you start to see the part when it says that child, he will not depart from it. So whatever good that you put in that child, he will not, number one, depart from it, but he will also acknowledge it. You understand? And even when you forgot about him, he won't forget about you. And the time that you had totally forgot about everything and this and that, that's when it finds you and acknowledge you. You know who experienced this a lot? Not only just parents, but teachers. My wife is a teacher. And my wife have a grown adult children she don't remember. She has a lot of things she remember them. But she don't remember. One just called her last week. But they remembered her. And everything she invested in them as a teacher. And that was like, what, a quarter of the time she spent with them versus the time you spent investing in your stepchild. You understand? She got a quarter of reaping. A quarter of the time. So imagine what you're getting ready to reap from that particular child because you invested the amount of fatherhood or consensual fatherhood that you invested in him. So I can tell you one thing, you're reaping, and I'm going to tell anybody that's listening right now, any good that you sowed in this world will never be reaped in vain. It will come back and will find you in a time where you were needed to find you. You understand? Because you're going to ask you, I think that somebody in the Bible asked, was my living in vain? It was a song or something like that. Very popular song. The Clock Sisters, my wife, she knows everything. She's a singer. She says the Clock Sisters. And I think all of us come to that conclusion. Was my living in vain? And that's what it comes down to, because when you're saying right now, Tinny, was my consensual fatherhood in vain? And I can tell you emphatically, it will not be in vain, because those principles and those foundations that you laid for that boy as a father, or particularly as a consensual father, it's going to reap a great harvest and a great fruit rather, that he can't make something good evil. And he's going to remember that good that you were, because it's going to manifest itself in some strange way. It always does. Magically. That is going to become a miracle for both you and him. So I'm just going to leave that like that. I'm not a philosopher, but it feels real good.
I appreciate those words.
The one thing I will say, and I think this is just reinforces our conversation. What we're saying, you don't have consent, so you can't. So in your heart, I think in your heart, you still have it in your heart, and I believe the child still has it in their heart. But the consensual factor is out the door because you don't have there's a difference that who has consent for children, right? And in this case, if it's not your child, sometimes you don't have that consent. I think there's a number of people who go through this all the time, stepfathers who go through this similar type of thing where, and people will say, you can still, no, you can't do anything. There's nothing you can do. You don't listen. If biological fathers sometimes they still can't get a edge in wise, and they that's their seed. How could you as just because your connection to become that consensual? I mean, to become that stepfather, that consensual stepfather. The connector is cut. For not just you, but for both of you guys. So as I always say, and I say to all fathers who are dealing with something when kids are not at the age of consent and what they want to do, hold on to what you have. Because I agree 100% with Lightborn. They definitely holding on to what they have. And they may not know, maybe they may learn, maybe they won't learn, but they will get a moment and try to find the time to come back. And this is what we got to get rid of these people who tell you that, hey, fuck them kids and this. No, because guess what? They're kids. They don't have any control. You can't be mad at them. They're not making the decisions. They're not the one. They have to survive. Listen, they have to survive. And the person they have to survive with is their caretaker, the person who is their gatekeeper, the person who is their responsibility person. You may have been that when you was in that setting, but you're not now. So you gotta say, okay, let me get my little box. The biggest business in the United States is storage units. So you gotta go and get your box, pack all your stuff in that, and go take it to your storage unit. And make sure you keep paying the payments on the storage unit. Because there's going to come a time you're going to go and get that box and open it back up, and you're going to have all the things that you want for you and for him. That is my strength-based way of looking at it. And that's the way I perceive that there is a natural connection. When you do good by people remember the good you do by them. Because guess what? People love you and you did bad by them. There's kids who've been, listen, what's the dude? It was in South Florida. What was the dude in South Florida, Tampa? And he killed the mom and tried to burn the kids in the house. He had the crazy trial. I don't remember the guy. And the son had to testify in the trial. That son still loved the dad who tried to put the gasoline on him. Even when the son was testifying, he was still saying, I miss you, daddy. You killed my sister and you killed my mom, but I miss you, daddy.
Well, Ron, what you just explained is you're talking about stability versus tragedy. That tragedy happened one time, but that stability happened hundreds of times. Absolutely. Well, how do we get that against each other? And I think, again, when we think we know everything, we know nothing. And we have a lot of learning to do because, again, these wasn't the kids that I think we expect to raise the kids that we were. And again, God's never going to allow that. You understand? Because it's not going to grow you one bit as a parent, particularly as an adult. But I think we lack understanding. The Bible says, above all things, get understanding. And I think that's exactly what the Fatherhood Think Tank fortifies, is understanding. We never proclaim to be experts on here. All we're doing is sharing experiences that can be taught to experts. You understand? experiences that
I love that. I love that statement. I love it because
right.
I think I try to say it all the time. Don't get my title mixed up. I'm only talking about experiences. I'm not telling you about anything about what is I think is it's been shown to me the DMS5. No, it's just experiences I had, experience I seen in other men, experience that we have sat in a room together and heard men present to us in these kind of forms. And just by having those type of experiences, you can make your own decision and say, is this something I believe, I don't believe, or how I want to navigate in I'm going to use a therapeutic term, narrative therapy. How can I write my own story for my consensual fatherhood and what it looks like for me? And so I'll leave it. I let stop right there with that because I listen. This because we can go and it'd be 9 o'clock and we wasn't supposed to. We started on time tonight, so the goal was to start on time in the end, but we had exactly a good place. I just want to thank the one thing I want to do is always thank the people who are watching out there in the world. I see Margot with comments. Thank you, Margot, for your participation. I know a good brother Babatora was out there tonight. I know he was listening and commenting and listening. It's in all other people out there who are listening. I see also in Facebook we had Camille out there listening, and I say thank you for tuning in and pass this message, pass this word on to some father, some man and tell them, hey, go in there, instead of going on there, looking on the this, go check this out for about 10 minutes and see if you get it. Because listen, you might not stay the whole 60 to 90 minutes, but you can get what you need maybe in 10 minutes, 10 seconds, I know 10 minutes. I mean, don't say 10 seconds. 10 seconds, that's just me breathing. Breathing. I want to again, before we go, I want to also definitely want to invite people to definitely, if you are available tomorrow evening, fathers out there, we are having not just fathers, but men and fathers. We are having a virtual presentation tomorrow night out of Fort Lauderdale, but it is on the hold on one second. I think somebody okay, so that means I can't pull nothing up. I don't know, maybe I got there it is. I'm sorry. Yeah. So we do have Brother You on My Mind, Zeta Chi, Fort Lauderdale. Black men, are you aware of that you are stressed? And I think that this is something that's important, and we're going to be talking about that tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, Zoom link. You look there right in the chat room, you can see it, and you can come on in and join us and get involved. So again, thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Man, I can't say enough to thank you guys for the conversation. I mean, it's always inspiring. It helps me do the work that I continue to do. This is, you can have your professional consultant, then you have, what they call them, the screening room, or what's the thing when they bring out a new topic and they want to put it to a group of people. Teddy, don't you know that? They got a new drink and they want to have you test it out. On.
Oh, I don't know.
Let me just say, let's just say our rubber band group that we come to a group where you can, bounce things off of each other, and that instead of it having to stick, it can bounce off, and you can keep to what it sticks and keep to what is not. Definitely in that case. So with that being said, guys, want to repeat after me, and we do this chant and get up out of here. I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of honor.
I
am a man of honor.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of courage.
I am a man of courage.
I say I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of respect.
I am
a man of respect.
Fathers, I say that I am.
I am.
I am.
I say that you are.
You
are.
I say that we are.
We
are.
Championship. With that, we hold our kids on our arms and our families, our communities on our back. And hey, great conversation tonight, guys. Can't look forward to next week. We'll have a new topic. But tonight was fantastic, man. I can't. These shows are awesome, man. These are awesome. And let me just give you guys both round of applause. As a matter of fact, let me give y'all thank you. A little drum beat get a drum beat for what you did tonight. We'll see you here back next week, 7 o'clock. Fatherhood Think Tank. We will be here and we'll be loud and clear. Thank you. Good night.
All right, y'all have a blessed one, fellas.